Good morning. It's January 30th, 2025, and I'm curious, what, if anything, did you learn in Junk Journal January 2025? If you're willing to share, I learned something about myself. I learned a couple things about myself, actually, but learned one very important thing. And so I thought we'd go over a handful of previous years' prompt list, see what else we can learn, and how we might apply that to any junk journal we make or any challenge that we participate in. So let's dive in and find out. For this experiment, I went back over about 5 years worth of prompt lists from January 2020 to this year. And I first had to look at them and see what categories of things Meg was inclined to include in her prompt list, whether she was working with a bunch of other people to make a prompt list or whether she was doing it by herself. And I noticed some patterns. So I asked myself, what other things can we notice about what Meg is likely to include in the prompt lists year over year? There's a reason why I'm asking this question. So I, looked at the prompt list and I came up with a handful of loose categories. She always puts an element, and by element, I mean things like what we're making, a cover, um, a pocket, an envelope, a tuck spot, a hidden fill in the blank. So that's what I mean, the actual physical things we're making. Then I wanted to know, what are the top 3 things Meg is likely to include as a prompt? And the top thing, now look, your mileage may differ, but in my opinion, based on very, loose structure here, her top thing that she includes is a technique like texture or torn edges or um, those kinds of things. It's always an art technique. The next thing, not surprisingly, is element. Um, the techniques that she suggests in the various prompt lists are meant to inform how you make the elements. And again, unsurprisingly, the third one is style, how you apply your own style to the elements and what techniques can you use. Now, you all know this year we were out of our depth on some of the prompts suggestions because they were styles or um, techniques that we had never thought of or done or had never crossed them over from where we're used to using them to a new way of using them. I know I certainly ran into that a couple of times. So now we're all sitting here going, huh, you don't say. But it's not really solving a problem, is it? Or is it? I sat and thought about it. In fact, I've been thinking about it since like day 3. And the first thing that I learned is it is not good for me to try and design for junk journals in landscape format. In other words, wider than taller. I'm so used to having books be shaped and sized like books that even though I do better work in landscape on screen when I present this stuff to you, it's no good when I try and do a junk journal that is wider than it is taller. The other thing I noticed is that a lot of us, right before Christmas, start trying to scramble to get a cover done or a signature put together so that after Christmas we can, start with the rest of the crowd. I was one of them. Look, a whole bunch of us did it, and I'm not criticizing me or anybody else for doing it, but I don't want to do that anymore either. Instead, what I want to do is create a empty book that I can add to, that I can work flat, unlike this time with the way we did our book this time. And I want to do it now. I want to put it aside where I can see it and get my hands on it and stuff things in over the years that I find that I love so they don't get lost, if that makes any sense. So that's what I'm doing for the last 2 days of Junk Journal January 2025. I am making the bare bones skeleton of cover/container, and I am making it so that I can throw clip art in there, or if I see a piece of packaging or whatever, it can go in there and I won't lose it. The other thing I noticed when watching Meg's makes for 2025 is she works in a very small format. When you look at how big her book actually is under her hands as she's demonstrating, it's not that big. I'm gonna guess that it's 3.5 inches or maybe 4 inches tall, by 3 inches wide or 2.5 inches wide. It's really small. And so the other thing I'm going to do going forward in the month of January is I'm going to start working in standard format again. What does that mean? Well, normally if I were making a junk journal, it would either be paperback size for smaller things, or it would be 5.5 by 9, almost the exact size of a beach novel. And the reason I do that is because I use so much book page, and if I decide to alter a book and use that, then I have standard elements. What does that have to do with how Meg does her January junk journals? Well, her junk journals are not too much bigger than clusters for the fronts and so forth of regular sized junk journals. And I got to thinking, gosh, maybe I should downsize just a wee bit more and do a single stitched folio like she did, and look at my things that I do in Junk Journal January as number one, experimental, which I did this year a whole lot more than I have in the past, and number two, potential cluster fodder for a different junk journal down the line. Something to think about. All right, what have we got here? So far, you've seen me make a simple signature, and I did not bind it so that I can work on the pages flat. What I'm showing you now is the fact that I need a thumb hole in that top pocket. And the top pocket is designed for 5x7 or half sheets of paper. And I made a stacked set of those pockets that we made way back in the middle of December as an example, which you'll probably see here in a minute, to go in that gusseted pocket on the front of the larger pocket to hold tags and ephemera and whatnot and so forth. Why did I make them staggered? You might want to know. The answer is I don't know. There's the first one we made way back in December, and I'll probably stick that in here since we didn't use it this year. But as you can see, these pockets are just for different size ephemera. This is made out of 1.5 file folders. The one file folder, the whole thing, makes up the bulk of this little folio for Junk Journal January of next year. And so throughout the year, I can, if I see something I think might fit into a future prompt, I have a little book to put it in. That paper on the back is a salvage from a really nice paper I made, but instead of using it as a masterboard, I decided to use it to strengthen the file folder because file folders by themselves don't make very good, they're not structurally very sound. So I have one or two more parts to make, and I will bring you that tomorrow. In the meantime, here is the announcement Mag Journals just posted about an hour ago for the January Junk Journal 2025 wrap party on February 1st at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 6 p.m. GMT. So run over to her community page and click notify me. It's the first notice, at least right now it is. Thanks again for joining me. God bless you, and I hope to see you again real soon.